When it comes to whether it's a charter, whether it's a shuttle, whether it's a line run, a commuter run, whatever job that you on, appreciate the job for what it is. An opportunity for you to fund the things that you want to actually achieve, the fun and do the things that you actually want to do in order to become the best version of yourself. So really remember, when you're doing that, appreciate it for what it is. Be thankful and grateful, and be patient. Have a plan in mind, knowing where you're going to go, where you're starting from to where you're going to, so that way you can be able to become the best version of yourself at any job or any field that you are in. Hey, BET Training here. Listen, so I am on a coach bus, actually operating coach bus, and I'm doing a job. So pretty much what I'm doing now, I'm just standby, I'm waiting, I'm doing a shuttle route. So long story short, one of the stations, subway stations, is closed due to either construction of certain stations from one point to another. So since passengers or riders will not be able to go to different subway stations from one point to another because of construction, or they're working on the subway stations, they contracted or hired other motor coach bus companies to transport people from one station to another. So I am one of those drivers and pretty much just waiting. They have supervisors and people on call or dispatch on call, or just supervising, making sure that everything runs smoothly. So I'm just waiting for one of supervisors to let me know when to pull off to the next stop or when to start. And to be honest with you, I'm doing the night shift, and it's pretty sweet. I haven't even started the route yet, even though I was trained on the route earlier before. But the beauty thing about this is it's about 10-hour, 11-hour type of shift, and yeah, it's the night shift. And I'm just sitting here getting paid on the clock. So it's amazing feeling to be able to do that. But I just want to share with you what I'm doing. And I want to talk about the procedures and the overall mindset process of when you are doing a job, specifically when you're doing a shuttle service or a commuter service, a line run, or however you do it. This is considered a charter specifically because it's a temporary job or a temporary contract that the subway stations, that they contract the companies for. So in other words, since this contract is only temporary, they only need the motor coach drivers, the bus drivers or operators to transport different stations for only about a few days. Then that's considered a charter because it's not consistent. It's only that short period of time specifically. And since it's considered a charter because the company offered that or provided or requested of that, then that means that it's considered charter work. So that means depending on which company you're at, sometimes you have charter pay versus the shuttle pay or the commuter pay or the line run pay, however that is structured out, depending on which company you're at and which company you're working for or working with. So, but specifically with the company that I'm in, they separated. So the charter pay pays a little bit more than if it was a regular shuttle route or if it was a regular commuter route. So some companies may be the same, but you'll be paid hourly. So depending on the type of job it is, and depending on how it's structured and laid out, you can get paid multiple ways. You can either get paid hourly, you can either get paid by the job itself, certain rate of job, and the third one I like to call a combination of both. I don't believe a lot of companies are doing the third part, the combination of both. But if they are, I believe this is perfect because it's that blend between hourly versus a set rate. Now, there's cons and pros to each of those rates. Whereas if it's hourly, clear, simple. The time you start from the time you end, that's when you get compensated. The set job is, okay, you get paid for that amount, and the hours, I'm pretty sure the hours is into consideration with that pay or with that per job. But whatever that set fee is or that set pay is, that will be depending on whether it's a job or it's for the trip. So for example, If I was doing an out-of-town trip for 4 or 5 days, most likely from the company's perspective, they would be paying the driver more if they paid the driver per hour if it was an out-of-town trip, versus companies are starting to, or if they haven't already, a lot of them are doing a set fee rate if it's out-of-town trip, or if it's a specific job that lasts for a long period of days or multiple days at a time. So let's just say it was a 4-day trip. That 4-day trip, it might be a set fee or a set pay for each day, and that covers for the whole day. Wherever you work, maybe 4 hours that day or 12 hours that day, that set fee is for that day. That's what is the difference when it comes to getting paid by the job day, of how much it is for that day. Versus hourly, pretty simple. Hour, you get paid for every hour that you are on the clock. And this company specifically, I'm getting paid by the job, but if you equate it to hours, the amount of time I start, the amount of time I end, it adds all up. But one of the main topics is, of course, the overall process when it comes to doing shuttles or commuters and or line runs. So specifically with this job, all I'm doing is picking up, starting at one station and driving according to the route, according to their specific route. And all right, I'm back. So long story short, it was another driver that I just saw that recognized me because I work with a different company. So I don't just work with one bus company. I work with about a couple. So that way I can be able to leverage my resources and income and have multiple streams of income and not being solely dependent on one company or one job or one entity or one source of stream of income. But back to what I was saying, as far as the route itself, they'll tell you which route to go. So picking up one station, picking up passengers, take them to the next station that is closed to do some construction. So whatever the trains, the subway trains are not able to do because those stations are closed doing construction. When those stations are closed, they hire the bus companies to be able to fulfill those, so that way people can still be able to go to where they need to go to. Now, luckily this is the weekend, but if it was during a weekday, definitely it would be different weekends versus weekday. But like I said, this is only a couple days, but they would tell you or show you which routes you need to do. Also, they'll give you a paper or they'll give you a form where you have to write out what stop that you're at, what time you arrived, how many passengers are on board, and keep track of that for every single stop. And either inbound or outbound. So meaning inbound just means that you're from inward, so where your starting point basically, and then going out. Specifically with this job, it's inbound is in the city. Outbound is going out, leaving away from the city. So when it comes to inbound and outbound, that's both directions. So writing down or noting down what stop you're at, what time you arrived there, and then how many passengers are on board. Usually the supervisor most likely would be there, let you know how many passengers are on board. If not, then you have to keep track of that yourself. So that's one of the main differences, and mainly just taking your time, being on the road. And since I'm doing the night shift, the sun is not out, so it's nighttime. So really, you gotta be really attentive and careful of how you are driving on the road, being aware of your signs, and really taking your time, getting as much space as you need. Make sure you're doing the proper speed limit, making sure that you are either checking your blind spots, you're making sure you are really checking your mirrors, really making sure that you are fully aware and just driving safely. But that process, usually depending on how long the route is, it might take 40 minutes, it might take an hour, it might take 2 hours, depending on the need, how many passengers, and how many stops that specific shuttle service or route has. But overall, usually they'll give a break. If it's over 6 hours, it's required for you to have a break, at least 30 minutes or so, 30 minutes, hour, but a break within that 6 hour period. So the supervisor was asking me, what time would you like to take your break? And for me, I said about 9 or 10 o'clock. So started at 4. So I figured about at the halfway point, that would be a good ideal break. You might want to do it earlier, depending on rather if you have time, or rather if that's the only option. Because sometimes it may be something where you might need to take the break early because they need you later, or vice versa. They might need you early, so then you have to work through that, and then they'll give you, or you'll have the break closer to the end of your shift, depending on how it is, how the company, how they operate, and how the contract, the job itself, how is that organized and structured, and their guidelines are. But all of that comes to say is really keeping in mind. Before I even started, they gave me a form pretty much that says a driver, like the mileage, the date, and all of that. And obviously I relieved the driver, so pretty much it was a company vehicle that I rode in, and the dispatch and or supervisor, they went ahead and took me to the bus to relieve the driver that was doing the morning shift. So they was doing the morning shift, and I'm doing the evening/night shift. So when that switch takes place, they supposed to do the post-trip an inspection, and then you do the pre-trip inspection by signing off. It could be either a paper form or electronic form. Most likely nowadays it's electronic, so you have to sign in and then sign that the post-trip is correct and accurate. Then you do the pre-trip of the vehicle, and then you complete the pre-trip of it. If there's no defects, you sign that there's no defects and confirm. So either it's in written form, electronics, or both. Believe it or not, there is very few companies that will want you to do both, because the paper form is just a trail, just in case if a company is audited, they'll go ahead and put it in their files and as part of DOT. Electronically will be the ELD, electronic logging device. That will be for the company, the policy, and DOT as well. So that way it can help the company and yourself keep track on the hours of service, how many hours you are driving and operating the commercial motor vehicle. But back to the shuttle route. Shuttle or commuter is pretty simple, pretty explanatory. They'll tell you where to go. Luckily, I was trained earlier in the morning part of the day to do the route. Only took about probably a couple hours just to know the different types of routes itself for this specific charter, and just in case if they need me to do it, then I know it. Luckily, I'm familiar with the area, so I was able to adapt quickly. But if not, the company gave step-by-step directions, and the job itself gave step-by-step directions of which stations to go to and where to turn, the name of the street you go, and in order, whether it's from one direction to another direction. So from inbound to outbound and outbound to inbound. But overall, the overall process is pretty simple. It's pretty easy, explanatory. It's just be sure that you ask questions. And what I mean by asking questions, be attentive, be aware. Think about what are the things that will help you make this job more efficiently, more effectively, but most importantly, more safety. That will be safe. Jobs, anything that will make the job more safe as well. For example, after I drop passengers off, a question to ask is, excuse me, where would you like for me to stage? Or where would you like for me to park the vehicle? Or where would you like for me to move the vehicle or park at? Then they'll tell you where they will have the bus moved at, or the vehicles moved or staged at. Staged just means at a place where you're just waiting, you're on standby, waiting for the supervisor or waiting for the authorized personnel to let you know what you would need to do next. Ultimately, as a commercial motor vehicle operator, as a driver, the primary goal is to make sure you can safely maneuver and drive this vehicle safely. The administrative work is important, but try to minimize that as possible. Now, administrative work is part of it. Writing down how many stops that you're at, the location of the stops, how many passengers you picked up, what time you arrived, what time you departed. Those are important administrative part, because that way the job, not just the company, the bus company, but really for the transportation on their end, they can keep track of how many passengers got on board. So it's a safety procedure. It's a standard operating procedure, or SOP. So that's what SOP stands for, standard operating procedure. But with the shuttle routes, it's timely. Now, with this one specifically, they'll tell you when to pull off, when to leave. But some is a set times, a set schedule where they'll tell you which times you need to arrive there, which times you need to depart. And if you are late, then communication is key. Usually the supervisor or the authorized personnel will let you know where or how to communicate or contact. Usually if it's an emergency, obviously safely pull over. If it's a safe place to pull over, stop, park the vehicle, might secure the vehicle, meaning park it in a safe place, and then step out of the vehicle and then make that either phone call or contact the supervisor or the point of contact, which is POC, if you have any questions on that matter. So that's one of the communications. Sometimes you have a notification on the ELD, the electronic logging device, wherever if dispatch or the supervisor or someone is trying to contact you. So those are some things to keep in mind of. But overall, when you're doing the route itself, just taking your time, really being on time as well, because some give you those schedules or what time you have to be there, what time you have to arrive. And as a rule of thumb, depending on the company, usually you don't want to depart exactly at that time because you want to give maybe a minute or two grace period for other passengers to come on board. That's just a general rule of the transportation industry. But depending on it is public transportation or private transportation, since subway transportation contacted different companies, it's considered private, but it's ultimately serving for the public. So in a form of public transportation, but the subway pretty much contracted the bus drivers and the bus companies for us to be able to do this. With that being said, really just being mindful of that 1 minute, 1 to 2 minutes. Some companies or policies, they'll have you wait about a minute after the departure time. Let's say the departure time is 7:15. If the departure time is 7:15, they'll say do not pull off until 7:16 or a minute after the departure time. So if it was 7:15, then that means you can leave no earlier than 7:16, as an example, right? And they say you can leave a minute or two late, but never leave earlier, because the company can be penalized in some way or another if that takes place. But that's just some things to really keep in mind as you're approaching that. Let's just say you're approaching the stop. You want to obviously check your mirrors, make sure you're slowing down, make sure that you are stopping at the appropriate stop. And key thing, when you are pulling off, obviously check your mirrors, check your blind spots before you safely pull off. But also, depending on the companies, as a general rule, you do not want to pick up people that is outside from the stop, the designated stop. So for example, if no one's at the stop and it's time for you to pull off safely, you pull off, but you see someone running and it's at a point where it's unsafe for them to get on board at that point, and especially since they're not at the stop, then you do not want to put yourself in a position of risk of trying to let that passenger on board. And that's where the communication lies, in talking to that supervisor about that, asking those types of questions and being aware, what happens if such and such happens? What is the procedure next? What I need to do next? Or what is it that needs to happen from that? For example, you could ask them, once I drop off the passengers or once I pull off from that stop, if I see someone approaching the stop or trying to get on the bus or the vehicle, what would be my next step? What should I do? Or what would be the policy procedure, the standard operating procedure for that? And then they'll tell you about those things. But those are just some aspects to keep in mind of when you are doing just overall common service, but specifically the shuttle route, the shuttle services, or the commuter services or the line run services. So each, depending on where you're at, where you're located, they have their own set of systems. But generally speaking, it's just really being mindful, being attentive, and being aware of your surroundings, asking questions, the right questions, but then also being open-minded to maneuver when you need to be and be flexible as possible. But still keeping in mind that safety is the number one priority when you're doing this. So safety is the number one priority. Communication, being aware of your surroundings, knowing what is the standard operating procedure for when you're doing this. And that's just for driving or working in general, but specifically when you're doing shuttles, commuter line runs, or even charters as well. That communication is key. Customer service as well. Since it's public transportation in a way, of course, you always want to be courteous, calm, polite, right? But as a commercial motor vehicle operator, as the driver, it's your responsibility to make sure that you are operating the vehicle safely. So during a safety announcement, when you are letting passengers know about the safety emergency exits, you're letting the passengers know. If you're driving a motor coach that has a portable bathroom, right, the restroom in the back, letting them know about that. The emergency buttons that are on the coach bus or that are on the vehicle. The safety key things that passengers will need to know just in case if an emergency happens, what they need to do in order to be able to safely ride the vehicle. For example, passengers cannot go over the standee line. They cannot go over the standee line while the vehicle is in motion. So for example, here is the standee line. So meaning no passengers can go beyond or can go past that standee line where the door is. They cannot go beyond that while the vehicle is in motion. So that's one of the safety announcements that would need to be addressed. And just really being attentive, being aware, and also when you're doing the routes, it would be good, and it's actually part of the procedure to be able to let passengers know what time it is, what stop that you are at, what stop you're located, the name of the stop, what time you arrived at the stop, what time, where you are departing next, and what time you are leaving. So depending on how you structure it, you can say, all right, we're at this stop, it is such and such. We are departing at such and such, going to such and such, as an example. So you could say, all right, so we are at point A at this time, and at this time we'll depart to point B, as an example. So those are some things to keep in mind. That's for every stop, common courtesy, because people want to know where they're going. They want to know what time it is. They want to be aware of what's going to happen, where they're going to go, what they need to do, what they need to keep in mind of. And that's just a safety thing. And also that's a human personality, a human trait. And not just a trait, but it's human nature for us to know. We want to know what's going on. We want to know, all right, where are we at? Where are we going? How does this apply? How is this important? And what they need to do, or what we need to do. That's one of the things, learning about these things, and then how to incorporate it and bring your personality into it as well. So, but overall, that's the process. And at the end of the day, when it's the last stop, the supervisor will let you know when you can either be on break, obviously, but they'll let you know this will be your last route or your last loop, or whatever the case is, and then you end the shift by safely driving back to either the terminal, the bus lot, the yard, wherever the case is. And then of course you do the post-trip inspection of the bus. Usually that'll take about approximately 5, 10, 15 minutes or so, or however long it takes to do the pre-trip and or post-trip. But at the end of the shift, it's the post-trip inspection. Then you either clock out. Some companies have a system where you manually clock in and out, or you electronically clock out, or it's already recorded in some form of system depending on the company that you are working with and or working for. But that's the process, that's the steps. And to be honest with you, I haven't even drove yet. Most likely they might have me do about a few, maybe 2 or 3 runs. But it's just the fact that I'm on the clock. I'm sharing this with you all, and I'm on the clock, and it's almost like standby, for real. And being in that position, I'm just thankful and grateful to be able to share this with you, because you can actually do it too if you choose to. It really pays. It really pays a lot. You can get most out of your time by almost doing nothing. It's not you're doing nothing. You're still on the clock. You're still being aware of your surroundings. You're still being attentive and aware. You're still being a commercial motor vehicle operator and a driver. But when you're on standby, you're just waiting. You're being attentive. But in the meantime, you can either listen to some music, you can eat some food, relax. Maybe you want to be on your phone, or maybe you want to do some reading. Maybe catch on a little bit of nap or sleep during this time. And you can get most out of what you have. Not only getting paid on the clock just to be on standby, but then you can also do other things. Be more productive with your time. Maybe you need to strategize, plan your goals. Maybe you need to do some administrative work. Maybe you need to go ahead and answer some phone calls, or you have to send some emails out or read some emails, or whatever the case is, to be able to be productive, especially in the time that we are in now, and especially in general, becoming the best version of yourself. How do you make and utilize the most out of your time? How do you do that, right? And overall, that's a process, but relatively simple. Of you can do anything you set your mind to, and it's really the mindset. Once the mindset's there, then the physicality of actually doing it, that will come once you make that decision or that habit. And of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, that mindset is really a huge thing, right? If you don't believe it, how do you expect for other people to believe it? So really, what can I say? I'm just thankful either way to share this with you all about specifically the overall process when you're doing either shuttle routes, line runs, or commuter runs. And briefly, those three, people do it or talk about it interchangeably, but there is some differences. Shuttle is just, it's a certain amount of time, whether it's a loop or it's a certain route, that's a shuttle, right? A line run is a line run from going from it could be one area or one state to another state or another area, much longer distance, right? A line run versus commuter run can be within the same state. It might be the next state over, but commuter runs is like, it's consistently, maybe it's multiple times a day over per week. And shuttles can be that way too. Shuttles can be a certain destination, but it's much smaller or shorter route, generally speaking. Whereas line runs is a longer route, larger route, and further distance. And commuter run is like the intermediate. Intermediate basically just means that it's somewhere in between that line run versus that shuttle. And then of course, charter is a specific job, whereas maybe it's private. Most likely a company or a client will request services for that specific day or that specific time frame of it. So, and that's why it's interesting, because it's considered charter pay or a charter, because a client via public transportation, the subway, the transportation system, called the bus company to do a service to transport people, public transportation. So it's still considered charter, but like I said, those things run interchangeably. Generally speaking, charter is from a private, either entity, business, and or company that will request services or request work from you all, request work from the drivers or whatever is needed for that. So, but yes, those are the overall things, and that's the main differences between those. And drive safely, make sure you're aware, being attentive of your signs, being aware of your surroundings, and just having that determination, and you'll definitely go far. But that's my topic for today. Definitely, I'll talk to you all soon. Stay safe and keep living your best life. Keep moving forward. And remember, when it comes to whether it's a charter, whether it's a shuttle, whether it's a line run, a commuter run, whatever job that you're on, appreciate the job for what it is. An opportunity for you to fund the things that you want to actually achieve, the fun and do the things that you actually want to do in order to become the best version of yourself. So really remember, when you're doing that, appreciate it for what it is. Be thankful and grateful, and be patient. Have a plan in mind, knowing where you want to go, where you're starting from to where you're going to, so that way you can be able to become the best version of yourself at any job or any field that you are in. And with that being said, just remember, drive safely, take your time, and I will see you soon. Hey, quick update. So I just finished the shift, the shuttle route shift, and look, let me tell you, it was so sweet. Literally, it was so many buses and stuff that it was just downtime, just waiting. And they actually released me early, and I still get the same pay rate. it was just awesome. Now, obviously, not every job is going to be like that. Some of those routes may take longer, maybe working a little bit longer hours, and some of it's sweet. So it depends on the type of job. it is, but I just want to keep you all posted with that. And by far, and remember as well, when you are on the bus, you're operating the vehicle, just make sure you're calling, making sure that all your passengers, you do a sweep of the bus. The sweeping just means that you're going, checking the bus, make sure that there's no debris, make sure that all the passengers, once they are departed, you're making sure that the bus is empty. Make sure there's no sleeping passengers on the bus, making sure everything is clear, good to go. And that's before you release of the shift or after that last stop, dropping off those passengers. You do the quick sweep of the bus, just make sure that no one else is there, everyone else has left, and the bus is clean, ready to go back to the yard, and then go ahead and do the post trip and stuff like that. But yes, definitely had to keep you all posted on that. Stay tuned for more future videos, for more content, and like I said, really stay focused. Your mindset is the future of your life. It's starting now. Live your best life, be the best version of yourself, and take care. I'll see you all soon. This video was sponsored by BET Life Services and CDL for Life. Listen, if you really enjoyed the value of this video, just click comment what you liked. And then if you really want to get more updates on more future videos, life-changing videos, then go ahead and click the subscribe button so that way you can be able to be updated on the latest videos. Now, there's a free offer that is underneath of this video. You got to click the link to get it because it may not be available. BET Life Services and CDL for Life is offering this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you to change your life for the better by giving away bonuses that's worth hundreds of dollars or more. But the link is down below, and it's not guaranteed that it's going to be there the next time you see it. And it's only going to be available to those who take action, and it's only available for a certain amount of people. So if you want to get access to this life-changing opportunity to change your life, click down below so you can get instant access to the free bonuses down below. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you in the next video.